Why does Bitcoin keep going up? This is a question that I actually like to ask no coiners because I know that no coiners have asked themselves that question many times, and I know that they are just totally perplexed. Perhaps they've been watching Bitcoin go up for years and it just does not die. And therefore, I like to, if a no coiner is, if you can tell that they have some interest in Bitcoin, but they just don't get it, but they're not just going to dismiss it either. They're willing to listen. I like to ask the question, why does Bitcoin keep going up? And then go from there. Now, I came across an interesting statistic. How many millionaires are there in the world? There is about 56 million millionaires in the world, as measured by having a net worth of $1 million US or higher. How many millionaires are there in the United States alone? Now, this is interesting. A fluke or a coincidence, you might say. But look at this number. There is 21.9 million millionaires in the United States. 21 million. Why is that number so familiar? 21 million Bitcoin hard cap. So you can see where I'm going with this. Why does Bitcoin keep going up? It has a hard cap of 21 million. Currently there is 18.8 million Bitcoin that have been issued. There's actually there's less than that in circulation for several reasons, but that's about 90% of the supply of Bitcoin has come into this world, only 10% remaining. Ultimately, you have a 21 million supply cap. 21 million millionaires in the US. So you can see why this is a very interesting stat. There isn't even enough Bitcoin in 2140, which is over a century from now, for every millionaire in the US to even have one Bitcoin. It's mathematically impossible. It's not a matter of they don't have enough money. It's a matter of there is no possible way for every millionaire to have one Bitcoin because there's more millionaires. There's 21.9 millionaires in the US than there ever will be issued Bitcoin. Why does Bitcoin keep going up? I wonder why. This isn't even accounting for the 56 million millionaires in the world. You have 5.2 in China, 3.6 in Japan, 2.29 million millionaires in Germany, and so forth. There's 56 million millionaires in the world. They can't even, all the millionaires in the world can't even possibly have, it's mathematically impossible for them to have half a Bitcoin. Think about that. It's not that they don't have enough money, it's that the absolute scarcity of Bitcoin is so severe that the scarcity of Bitcoin is so entrenched, it is so permanent, absolute. It just does not change. It does not react to demand. It is totally and utterly inelastic. Bitcoin does not care about demand. Bitcoin is blind to it. It does not care how much demand there is for Bitcoin. The Bitcoin protocol will not change. the issuance schedule of Bitcoin, it will not change the hard cap of 21 million. It doesn't matter how much fiat the millionaires of the world throw at it. Only a few of them, only a portion of them could ever have one Bitcoin, and it would leave a whole bunch of other millionaires without even a chance of accumulating a full Bitcoin. Now, I've mentioned before, I believe Bitcoin will be a status symbol. To own a single Bitcoin. Now, this is psychological, right? The milestone. We had an episode on this. The milestone of a single Bitcoin is basically arbitrary, because it's divisible by 100 million, and so forth. But there's a psychological, there's that psychological threshold of crossing into the whole Bitcoin territory, and I believe that one day for the rich and the elite, they will want to own one Bitcoin just for that reason, even if they know nothing about Bitcoin other than that. They'll just want it as a status symbol. And that's not even accounting for how I believe we are going to see a flood of capital from family offices, from rich, not just rich, but truly wealthy estates, the billionaires, families, dynasties. They are going to, I believe, start demanding of their investment advisors that they get exposure to Bitcoin, and they will be buying whole Bitcoins. In fact, I don't even think that they'll need to demand of their investment advisors. I think we're going to have investment advisors themselves advising it, as at first as a hedge, at first as a portfolio diversifier. But even ignoring all that, just the fact that there's this funny coincidence where there's over 21 million millionaires in the United States, and there's a 21 million hard cap on Bitcoin. There isn't even 21 million Bitcoin yet. It's going to take another 100 years for that to happen. And there's many Bitcoins. There is many Bitcoins that are forever lost. They're gone. So that portion of the supply isn't even factored in. Why does Bitcoin keep going up in price? I wonder why. There's another point that I should stress, and that is that when new money comes into Bitcoin, it does not raise the market cap or the price of Bitcoin proportionally. For example, the millionaires in the United States control roughly $60 trillion. Let's say that the millionaires of the United States collectively decided to devote 1% of their net worth collectively to Bitcoin. That would be about $600 billion. Bitcoin has a market cap of over $1 trillion right now. So that would be about, that's a substantial amount, 600 billion. The new market cap, if this 1%, this 600 billion went into Bitcoin, the new market cap would not be 1.6 trillion. Oh, that's not how it works. That new $600 billion has to compete on the open market. They have to place bids. They have to eat into the ask stack. Basically, there is people that are willing to sell Bitcoin at the current price, yes, but as soon as that Bitcoin is bought up Well, the next person in line to sell it is selling it for a little more. And when you have that much, when you have $600 billion flooding into the market, the price begins to rise just exponentially. Right? It's not linear. New money coming into the market does not increase the price of Bitcoin linearly. It increases it exponentially. And we're only talking 1% of the liquid net worth, or we're only talking 1% of the net worth of only the millionaires in the United States. $600 billion they would be able to plow into Bitcoin without even blinking. 1%, even if Bitcoin goes to zero, they lose 1%. No big deal. But they might be willing to do it because they see the upside. They might be willing to take that risk. And that's just 1% of their capital. 1% of their capital just in US millionaires, and the price of Bitcoin in fiat could just explode. Just explode. It could be face melting. And we're not even talking about situations in which the fiat currency itself, the fiat currency system itself, begins to fail or collapse, or there's hyperinflation in the West due to rampant and unrestrained money printing. We're not even talking about that situation. We're just talking about some millionaires deciding to throw 1% of their net worth, and it's face-melting returns in fiat, measured in fiat, for Bitcoin. Why does the price of Bitcoin keep going up? These are the reasons why. There is an ocean of capital out there in the fiat system that is more or less happy to be in that system for now. But what if that changes? Then there's a few options for that capital. Perhaps that capital decides to go to gold, or perhaps it decides to take a little more risk and it goes into Bitcoin. Or maybe, perhaps, it goes into Bitcoin because it determines that gold is actually the riskier bet, because gold just might be on track to be demonetized. Now, what is the point of this video? The point of this, we're talking a lot about the fiat price of Bitcoin. And I've discussed this before. I don't care about the fiat price. The only reason why I'm throwing these figures around is to give you a sense of proportion, to give you a sense of how much capital there is out there in the hands of the wealthy that, if directed, if funneled or transferred over to Bitcoin, will create such scarcity in Bitcoin that even for a millionaire to be able to, even if they converted their entire net worth, if your net worth is only $1 million and not 10, then even if you sold every single asset that you owned, you still wouldn't be able to buy a single Bitcoin. Again, it's not about the fiat. What I'm trying to describe is that Bitcoin is so scarce that it boggles the mind. We're not even used to dealing with the type of scarcity that is involved in here, because in the fiat system it's the opposite. Fiat system is there is no scarcity. It's infinity. We're used to no limits with fiat. We're used to we print trillions of dollars without blinking. There's no limit. It's infinity. Bitcoin is you could not be more the opposite with Bitcoin. It is absolutely fixed. And if you believe, as I do, that millionaires and the wealthy will want to have the bragging rights, if only for that reason, just to say that they have one Bitcoin, they will, once they recognize just how scarce it is and how much competition they have from their peers, they will scramble. I believe they will scramble. They will throw fiat to get one Bitcoin, and they won't even look at the price. And consider that, I mean, we're only talking about the millionaires of the world. We're not talking about this is what, 56 million millionaires in the world? What about the 7 to 8 billion people of the world who also will be, they won't be competing for Bitcoin because 95% of the world has already been priced out of owning a full Bitcoin. They'll be competing for sats. So in this scenario, these millionaires are not just competing against each other. They're competing against the world. And we're just talking about human beings, individuals. We're not even talking about institutions or governments or central banks and what happens when they too get into Bitcoin, pile into Bitcoin. And they already are. Governments are already buying Bitcoin. Central banks are already buying Bitcoin. Institutions, Fortune 500 companies are already buying Bitcoin. And we've just been talking about individuals, 1 man out of 7 billion buying Bitcoin, and how scarce it is compared to the amount of people there are. And institutions and governments and central banks these are separate economic actors that have to be accounted for as well. Why does Bitcoin keep going up? I wonder why.